Black Adam is literally everything wrong with the superhero genre today, and quite literally might be one of the worst movies I've seen all year. You want to see a studio dump tons of money into big stars and CGI that ranges from good to video game cutscene level? This movie has that. You want a nonsensical story with poorly explained MacGuffins, one-dimensional characters, and somehow even more one-dimensional villains? This movie has that. You want multiple slow-motion sequences with random pop songs that don't really match with the mood of the scene? Yeah, for some reason this movie has that as well. Basically, it was just your typical empty, bland superhero movie that you won't remember in 1 hour. But what did it do wrong? That is precisely what we're going to be taking a look at today, and as always, I'm going to break my analysis into 3 categories: story, characters, and acting/effects. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, as it really helps me out. And with that out of the way, let's jump right into why Black Adam encapsulates all the mistakes of a bad superhero movie. Oh, also spoiler warning is in effect. Let's start off with this story. There are several problems with this plot, and I'm just gonna highlight a few of them. First off, there are instances in the movie where characters just say stuff that changes everything. For example, right after Black Adam murders some of these terrorist guys, the woman who set him free, Adriana, is arguing with the Justice Society and telling them that Black Adam is their legendary hero who will save their people from oppression, as foretold by their culture's ancient writings. But then, Hawkman just straight up says that the Justice Society has secret, hidden ancient texts from their culture that actually explain the truth about Black Adam, and how his rage basically killed a bunch of the people he was supposed to liberate, and he was found to be not worthy by the wizards who gave him the power, which is why he was sealed away in the tomb. So yeah, we don't see these secret ancient scripts, we don't get an explanation for how the Justice Society has them, we just have to take Hawkman at his word and change our whole perception of Black Adam's character just because of one line of dialogue. This violates the writing principle of showing, not telling, which essentially is, if you want your audience to actually understand and feel the weight of something, you have to show it to them. You can't just tell them about it and expect them to be satisfied. Secondly, the story doesn't have a consistent villain throughout. We jump from Black Adam fighting these terrorist dudes occupying the city, to him fighting the Justice Society, to him fighting this really bad CGI devil guy. There is no consistent antagonistic force that the movie builds up tension for, and that makes it really hard for the audience to feel like there are any real stakes to the film, which in turn means that they will most likely forget what they watched in the first place. There are some things Black Adam does well with its story. The concept of a superpowered warrior from thousands of years ago coming back and liberating his people from a terrorist threat really is an interesting idea. The movie just doesn't execute its narrative as well as it could have, and that makes for a lackluster story. In all honesty, the story for Black Adam was not horrible. Sure, it had a few weak points, but if a subpar story was all the film was doing wrong, it would have still been a good movie. The same cannot be said, however, for the characters in this film. There's a couple I want to touch on, but let's start with the most egregiously bad one: Ishmael. They say a hero is only as good as their villain, and unfortunately for Black Adam, forgettable doesn't even begin to describe this character. Throughout the first 2/3 of the movie, he's kind of just there, not really doing much. Until the movie cuts back to a scene with him in it, you pretty much forget that he's even there. Like I discussed before, he has no build up to his transformation into fake Hellboy, and even when he is in that state, he kinda just breathes fire and fights people. His motivations are absolute cheeks, as he just wants to rule the city of, well, to be honest, I actually forgot what the name of the city was, but whatever that fake city was, he just wants to rule it because his great ancestor was the oppressive king guy from the flashback in the beginning, so he feels like he should be the ruler. He is just a big nothing burger, and as soon as audiences leave the theater, any thought of Ishmael, I'm surprised I even remember his name, disappears. Just an absolutely worthless villain, which is something the superhero genre has admittedly struggled with. But enough harping on the bad guy. Do you know who else is forgettable? The Justice Society. I only remember the names of Hawkman and Dr. Fate because of the comics, and I legit don't even remember what the other two characters were called. They get the most basic of setup and a bare minimum effort to flesh out their characters. They are all practically defined by one trait. Hawkman is the tough, aggressive team leader guy with a hot temper. Atomic Guy is clumsy and inexperienced. Wind Girl is kind, quirky, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Dr. Fate is the best out of the four, but even he is mostly one-dimensional, just filling in the role of old, wise mentor to the rest of the team. Black Adam as a character is alright. He's not too good, but not bad either. However, I considered him to be the best character in this movie, and he was just slightly above average, which should demonstrate how bad all the other characters in this film were. If there is one fatal flaw of superhero movies, it is the over-reliance on CGI. Now hear me out here. I'm not saying that special effects are necessarily bad in superhero movies, but when they are not used properly, they become empty computer effects that don't hold any real meaning or significance to the audience. A good example of how to do CGI right is Avengers Infinity War. We are given established rules as to what is required for the Infinity Gauntlet to reach full power, and have a basic understanding of what each of the Infinity Stones does. Thanos has understandable motivations and a fleshed out personality, and was overall a very good character. The CGI in this instance was used effectively, and so Thanos became perhaps the most popular villain of the 21st century. Let's compare Thanos to the main bad guy from Black Adam. Because there is no proper build-up to him whatsoever, and he has no clearly defined limits or abilities, viewers struggle to understand what is required to defeat him and how much of a threat he really poses. On top of that, as we covered in the character section of the video, he has extremely weak motivations and practically no personality or depth to his character at all. This ends up relegating fake Devil Guy to being an empty piece of CGI that Black Adam gets to punch around at the end of the movie, and is a perfect example of how to not use CGI in a superhero film. Besides that, the effects used to make this guy are just not good at all. Like, this legit looks like a cutscene from Injustice, not the final act of a major blockbuster movie. Unfortunately for Black Adam, most of the CGI in this movie suffers from the same problems I described for the villain, although not nearly to the same degree as that character. The film over-relies on entertaining audiences with massive fights and grand spectacles that it really lacks in other areas like writing and acting. Speaking of acting, that's the last thing that I wanted to talk about with Black Adam. There were a couple of bad actors in this film, but I overlooked most of these performances and gave them the benefit of the doubt because of the subpar material they were working with. However, there is one actor that was so awful, I literally convulsed every time he was on the screen. this kid. I don't remember what his name was, but this kid was atrocious in this movie. I don't want to be too hard on him, as it's a very tough job to be a young teen and have to act in a multi-million-dollar blockbuster, but I still gotta call him out for what I saw. Every line he spoke sounded like he was reading it from a script. His voice inflections were unnatural and awkward, and his performance was more flat than a basketball with 500 holes in it that got run over by a semi-truck, rolled over by a steamroller, then had the semi-truck and steamroller turn into Transformers, combined, and then ran over it again. There was no genuine emotion or even something that resembled it in his performance. Like I said, I don't want to be too hard on him. I'm sure that it was very tough to act in a multi-million-dollar blockbuster, especially at such a young age, and I'm sure he'll get better as he gets older. I have nothing against him personally, but at the same time, his acting job in Black Adam was just awful to me, and I have to call it out like I see it. Other lackluster actors were Ishmael. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate just looked like he was phoning it in for a paycheck, and the growing atomic guy wasn't necessarily bad, but he was just not funny at all and just kind of annoyed me. Anyways, that's all I have to say about Black Adam. My review doesn't go into detail on everything I disliked about the film, as I have a lot of gripes with it, but this video does get across the gist of what I was disappointed with. If you disagree with my review, that's perfectly fine. Everyone has their own opinion, and I'd love to know what you thought about the movie in the comments. If you like this video, chances are you would thoroughly enjoy my other content, and I highly recommend subscribing and turning on notifications to stay informed on whenever I drop a new video. Don't forget to let me know what you thought in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a great day.